It's a pleasure and honor to meet all of you. And are you enjoying your time at Dakshina? All right. So what we'll do is we'll run this as a Q&A, kind of see what you have on your mind, and then take it from there. So if we can go to the first question.
Sir, I am Prasant from JNV, Bhagalpur, Bihar. Sir, my question is, what do you think about poverty level in India and why does it exist?
So, people say that India is a third world country with first-class people. And on many fronts, we have very good talent. You can see very good institutions like the IITs, a lot of talented people, lots of natural resources, lots of things that should make us a very rich and prosperous country. But we are not a rich and prosperous country. But if they made me Emperor of India for not much time, maybe 3-4 years, with absolute unlimited powers, India would become an incredibly rich country. Now, this sounds like a politician's speech. Agar hum mujhko gaddi doge to ye hoga, wo hoga. But I want to just explain to you a few things which are very basic about why India is poor and why India should not be poor. Okay? So there was a guy in Scotland, maybe around 250 years ago, called Adam Smith. Anyone heard of Adam Smith?
He is known as father of economics.
Okay, and why is he known as father of economics?
Sir, because he wrote so much about economics in his book. I forgot that book name, sir, but that book was very famous.
Okay, all right, very good, excellent. So Adam Smith wrote a book. The book has a short form. The short form of the book is called The Wealth of Nations. The actual full title is An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. Okay? So the book came out around, I think, 1760s, approximately around then. He spent about 10 years writing it. That book, and the United States was formed in 1776. The United States operates, for the most part, based on Adam Smith's book. And it has blown past the whole world. बस एक किताब चाहिए थी फंडा क्रैक करने के लिए. The book, you can probably buy it for maybe less than 50 rupees in any language you wish to. So it is available everywhere. Every library has it. You don't even need to buy it. You can go to a library. So, and the book basically addressed exactly your question, which is, how do we make a country wealthy? Now, I would think that most countries would have an interest in becoming wealthy. And I would think that all leaders would first, before they do anything, read the book. पहले फंडे क्रैक कर लो, फिर गवर्नेंस शुरू करो. But actually what happens is politics comes in and many things come in and it ruins it. So let me give you an example of what Adam Smith was saying. And if you, like I was saying, if we had a few years where we did this in India, we would we would have a completely different per capita income. In fact, poverty would disappear, basically. So there are many people here from UP. Any of you who are from farming, who are the UP farmers? Raise your hand. And anyone in sugarcane farming? Any of your family is doing sugarcane farming? No one is doing sugarcane farming. Okay, so good. I won't get eggs thrown on my face. So UP is a state which grows a lot of sugarcane. Okay? And there is a lot of what I would call government meddling in the sugarcane production. So government will come in and set a minimum support price, which will say that it cannot be sold below this price. Government will come in and say no sugarcane can be imported, etc. So before I go, let me finish with sugarcane. Okay, so we have another country called Brazil. Brazil also grows sugarcane. When you grow sugarcane in Brazil, the cost of growing it is much, much less than the cost of growing it in UP. So if we allowed free market capitalism, which is no import restrictions, no export restrictions, no government interference of any kind, no subsidies. There's a farmer in a UP, he can buy everything at market price, sell to anybody he wants to. And there's a farmer in Brazil who buys at market price and sells to anyone he wants to. India has a 100% import duty on Brazilian sugarcane coming into India. Why did India do that? Because बहुत डरते हैं Brazilian sugarcane से. And if they remove this duty, let's say tomorrow the government says, we don't want to have any duty on sugarcane. Within 2 years, there will be no sugarcane grown in UP. Maybe even within 1 year, because they will not be able to compete. And so Adam Smith said that nations should focus on producing what they are really good at producing and where they have a distinct competitive advantage. And when nations do that, they become highly successful and they become very rich. Okay? So what has happened in India is that there is a significant vote bank amongst sugarcane farmers in UP. It's a very significant vote bank. It's a large amount. No government will want to mess with that, because if they mess with that, they will immediately get thrown out. Okay? That's why I said I need to be the emperor with unlimited powers. I don't want to be the prime minister. Prime minister होने से कुछ नहीं होता है. Absolute power चाहिए. Over the center, over the state, over everything. Which of course will not happen. So that's a separate point. But the thing is that, so let me take another example of what Adam Smith was trying to say. So basically what happens is that when UP grows sugarcane and doesn't let Brazilian sugarcane come in, what ends up happening is we as consumers pay a lot higher price for sugar than we should. Okay? Brazilian sugar quality is also better. We actually end up with lower quality sugar. And the reason why it affects the wealth of a nation is if you went down the path of saying that we will bring in Brazilian sugar at zero import duty, what will happen to that land in UP is it will find another use. And free market capitalism will determine what that use is. And I'll get to some of those things in a second. So let me take the example of shrimp farming. Does everyone know what shrimp farming is? Raise your hand if you don't know what shrimp farming is. So, jhinga hai. Does everyone know what a jhinga is? Jhinga or prawn is, well, it's not fish, it's a shrimp. So, but it's related, it's a seafood. So, shrimp farming is prawn farming or jhinga farming, okay? So, the way the shrimp farming works is you set up these ponds, which are actually saltwater ponds, and you populate the pond with very tiny shrimp. Then you put shrimp feed in the pond, and monitor it for some months, and then you harvest the shrimp, and then you sell it. So just like producing rice, you could produce shrimp. Okay. It works generally in areas which are close to the coast. Okay, because you need kind of that coastal seawater in these areas. So you cannot do shrimp farming in UP, for example. It wouldn't work so well. Now, in India, there is a significant amount of shrimp farming. So first of all, anyone here whose family is involved in shrimp farming? Anyone here from Andhra? Who's here from Andhra? The one and only. Two. Is your family into farming or no? Okay. So 50% of the shrimp farming that happens in India happens in Andhra Pradesh. Okay? And why does it happen in Andhra Pradesh? So for example, Andhra has a long coastline. Tamil Nadu also has a coastline. Odisha also has a coastline. But there are certain climatic, soil, temperature conditions in Andhra, specifically in Andhra near the coast, that make it optimized to do shrimp farming very cheaply. Okay? It's kind of like Brazil producing sugarcane. So there's pretty much no place on earth where you can do shrimp farming more efficiently than coastal Andhra Pradesh. So 50% of India's shrimp that is produced in Andhra Pradesh. And it is not used in Andhra Pradesh. It is exported all over the world. So when I go to an American store to buy prawn or shrimp or jhinga, even though it doesn't say it, it has actually come from India. Okay? So what Adam Smith said, free market capitalism, has worked on this industry very well because nobody interfered. Okay? No government came in and said, I'll increase or decrease the price. Now, let's say, for example, we have the USA. USA sees a lot of shrimp coming in here. They have their own local shrimp industry also. And they say, hum 200% tax dal denge is pe. For example. Let's say the US does that. Well, it will significantly drop what is produced here. Right? And so what the world is better off doing is having what I would call free and fair trade. Free and fair trade. And so if I take the example of if I take another example, let's say we go to Ratnagiri, producing mangoes, and we go to Saudi Arabia. Producing oil. Is Saudi Arabia good at producing mangoes? Should they try to produce mangoes? Should we try to drill for oil in Ratnagiri? Will they find oil in Ratnagiri? So, the way the world works best is if Ratnagiri focuses purely on mangoes and becomes really good at mangoes and sells those mangoes all over the world, where anywhere there is no restriction on Indian mangoes. Until about 15 years ago, it was illegal to send Indian mangoes to US. That just changed about 15 years ago. And it was also illegal 15 years ago to import apples from the US. Strange, not allowing apples to come in from the US, not allowing mangoes to go from India. That changed about 15 years ago. But so Saudi Arabia is very good at producing oil. They are not good at producing almost anything else. Can they make cars? Can they make computers? Can they make rockets? Nothing, just oil. But because they are so good at producing oil, so for example, for Saudi Arabia to produce 1 liter of oil, it will be about, see how much it is. It's about $5 a barrel, so 28 liters, so it's about 20 cents. Yeah, 15 cents. So it's about 1 rupee per liter for them to produce oil. What is the price of oil? 70? 77. So selling price 77 hai. Production cost is 1 rupee. Is it a good business? Unbelievable business. So if you produce, Saudi Arabia produces 10 million barrels a day. Okay, and each barrel is, let's say, $60. Okay, so basically, you have $600 million coming in per day. You have 18 billion per month, and maybe around 220 billion per year. It's about 10% of what India produces of everything combined. If we take all the goods and services of India that produce, all the crops produced, all the IT produced, everything produced, Saudi Arabia is about 1/10 of that. And they have 1/40th the people. Right? So it works very well. So Saudi Arabia doesn't need to do anything else. They just need to focus on this. But what they need is for Adam Smith's invisible hand to work is the whole world allows Saudi Arabian oil to just come in. Right? Because if they don't allow it to come in, it just stays in the country, it has no value. It has to get exported everywhere. And then against that, they can buy whatever they want. So the simplest thing that needs to happen for India to get very wealthy is for the government to just step out of the way. So step out of the way means what? We remove the subsidies on the sugarcane farmers. And the minute you do that, all the sugarcane farmers are ready to assassinate whoever did that. Right? So there will be a lot of turmoil if anyone tried to do that, even though it is the right thing to do. So let's say, for example, we take our IT industry, India's IT industry. India's IT industry is like India's shrimp farming industry. Basically, the government didn't even know there was such an industry when it started. Just like shrimp farming just started, right? And it grew without much government interference. I mean, sometimes they will set up some software export park, do some things, but you didn't need any of that. The reason it worked in India to have a great IT industry was because we had relatively low labor costs, and we had large numbers of people who could be trained relatively easily on programming and software. And the whole world was moving in a direction where they needed a lot of that talent. And so it was a perfect fit. Now, if the United States says all software or technology produced in India is subject to 200% duty, it will kill the industry. Right? So the industry relies on free market capitalism. And what Adam Smith said is that the UP farmer who is producing sugarcane, his life is not over. So there's a very easy way to fix the whole system. So how do we fix the system for the UP farmer? We're going to fix the system for the UP farmer very, very simply. Uska bhi mere paas solution hai. So before we make any of these changes like taking away duties and all that, we will make the direct benefit transfer very robust. So what we'll say is, if there's any Indian citizen anywhere and they don't have income, they're unemployed or whatever, or there was some drought or cyclone or whatever, something happened where the family is not making money, government will transfer, let's say, for example, rupees 1,000 per month per family member. Okay? So and another thing that would happen when I'm emperor, there'll be no ration system. Ration is gone, subsidized, anything is gone. So government will not get involved in food distribution. It will let free markets control everything. It'll just make sure things are fair, but it'll let free markets drive everything. And so once the direct benefit transfers are in place, a farmer in UP who is growing sugarcane, so India, we have a lot of soft corners for farmers, which is fine, but farming is a business, okay? Just like someone running a pawn shop is a business. And what does the business of farming require? The business of farming requires some land. It requires some money to pay for all the seeds and fertilizer and all the effort required to produce the crop. And then it requires some skills to sell the crop. And the farmer has to make decisions on which crop to grow, right? Because different crops give you different outcomes. So let's say, for example, Brazil sugar has a 100% duty. And what we say is that we're going to go through 5 years where the duty is going to go to 80, 60, 40, 20, and 0. So we won't drop it overnight, even though that's what I'd like to do. We drop it over a 5-year period, okay? So the farmers in UP clearly know where this is headed. And they know that long-term sugarcane is dead. They know that at least for basic survival, direct benefit transfer is there. So they have many decisions they can make. They can sell the land. They can decide, I'll grow cotton, for example, or I'll grow some other crop, or whatever else they decide. They will figure out the nature of capitalism is such that if you leave individuals to their own wits to figure things out, they will figure out some usage of that land and facility which makes sense. And when you come back after 20 years and you look at UP and the places that used to be sugarcane farms, they will not be barren. they would have been redeployed and reused in some manner that we may find hard to imagine today. But it will get reused. Just like today, what happens in Andhra is places that are growing rice are moving to growing shrimp. And they're moving from rice to shrimp because with shrimp you make more money. Right? So like that you will make that adjustment. And as those adjustments start getting made, and what would end up happening in the country is, as a country we become more competitive, which means we are not stopping people from sending anything to India. And when we don't stop people from sending anything to India, we are also going to make sure no one stops us from sending anything anywhere else. Two-way transfer, right? And so we focus on finding our version of Saudi oil. So India's IT industry is India's version of Saudi oil, for example. Or the shrimp farming is India's version of Saudi oil. So we will find more and more things which are like that, which will give us these things. Now the other thing is that a few weeks back, I have a few friends in the US who are farmers, and I met a farmer from Nebraska. And I asked him, what do you grow? He said, I grow soybean. And I asked him how many acres he has. He said he has 4,000 acres. And I asked him how many employees are employed in those 4,000 acres. So he said less than 10. So 4,000 acres is a pretty large farm, right? Larger than any of the farms of any of the farmers over here, I think. Okay? When they plant the soybean, they have these large combines, and the large combines now have GPS. There is nobody sitting in it. उसको प्रोग्राम कर दिया है, फील्ड का साइज लगा दिया है, उसमें बीज लगा दिए हैं, वो ऊपर नीचे जाके पूरे 4,000 एकड़ में बीज डाल देता है. With one person sitting in the office just watching what's happening. Okay? The same thing with harvesting. Harvesting is not a manual process. It is an automated process. And no one in that farm, so when he hires a person to help him in his farm, that person at a minimum is making about, in Indian rupees, about 40 lakhs. The lowest paid farm worker is making about 35, 40 lakhs a year. Okay? How much are Indian farm workers paid? Let's say, how many of your families are doing farming? Raise your hand if you're a farmer. So if you hire a person, daily labor, कितना होएगा daily labor farming help का? 150 per day, right? So if the daily labor is working for let's say 250 days, okay, so that will be about 40,000 rupees, right? Is that correct? 150 per day times 250 is, so 25,000, yeah, about 40,000 per year, right? So in India, the help is making 40,000. In the US, the help is making 40 lakhs, okay? 100 times difference. Which place produces cheaper soybean? इतना कम labor cost है. Why is the US able to produce soybean? So the United States has the lowest cost of production of soybean anywhere in the world. Okay? Why is that? Because सब फंडे क्रैक हो गए ना. I mean 4,000 acres isn't even that big a farm. I have friends who have 20,000 acres. So when they are fertilizing, a drone is flying. Okay, the drone is fertilizing the field. There is no usage of labor in any portion of the of the chain. And when the United States was formed, there was about 25 million people in the country, and 95% was doing agriculture. 1776, 23 out of 25 million people were in agriculture. Now the country has 330 million people, with less than 3 million people doing agriculture. So it went from 25 million to 3 million, when the size of the company went up like 13, 14 times, population went up 13, 14 times, and most of the production is not needed by US. That guy producing all the soybean, all of it is going to China. Okay? And so what should happen is India should not be trying to grow soybean. It should import the soybean from there. And now why is India so inefficient on soybeans? And why is US so efficient on soybeans? Well, we have put in a lot of restrictions. One of the restrictions that have come in India, which is stupid, is a lot of restriction on land sales and purchases, right? So what needs to happen, if you want to make agriculture efficient, one of the things that has to happen is the farms have to get a lot larger. Okay, if the farms stay 1 acre, 2 acre, 5 acre, 10 acre, you will never be able to compete with the 4,000 acres. Now, if I can put a farm in India, which is 4,000 acres, I have better climate here than the US, I can go head to head with the soybean guy. You know, if I have that scale, I'll bring in the same technology, I'll bring in everything, and I will probably be able to, because my climatic conditions are more conducive, because I'm in the tropics, I'll be able to do better. But if I don't get the scale, I can't do that, right? And so what we have to go back to is just what Adam Smith said, is we have to take out all the, restrictions and tentacles. So there are a lot of restrictions in India on the amalgamation of farms becoming large. And this goes back to the zamindari, right? There was zamindari, there was land reforms, all that things took place, right? The United States today, if you look at the United States agricultural situation, it is a zamindari. There are few farmers that own a lot of land and that produce a lot of crops. Nobody cares, because those farmers bought that land one by one by one. The 4,000 acre farmer, he makes a lot of money, he buys another 1,000 acres. Makes even more money, buys another 5,000 acres. Right? So that's how he became large, and you should allow him to become large. Nothing wrong with that. And so I think these are the things that need to happen. And just one more point I'll just give you, just first. And the reason I'm telling you this is because, no one is going to make me the emperor of India. Between us, I just want to admit that. That's not going to happen. But when you become older citizens of India and you ponder the question of why our country is poor for stupid reasons. Our country does not need to be poor. You need to understand that. So, in the state of Odisha, there are these very low quality iron ore reserves where the content of iron is very low. And that low quality iron ore reserve really is of not any use to people to take the iron ore and make it into steel, because the quality is so low. But there's a Korean company called POSCO, which has a process which can take that particular low iron ore. They have a process called Fintex. They can take that, they're the only ones in the world that have that technology. They can take that low ore content and make it into high quality steel. So Odisha happens to be on the coast. This low grade iron ore is not that far from the coast. And about 15 or 17 years ago, POSCO came to India And they made a proposal which was the largest foreign direct investment. They said we'll invest $12 billion, which is about, let's say, 80,000 crores to build plant, port, everything, so that we can mine the ore, create the steel, and then we'll export it all over the world. In other words, what POSCO was going to do with Orissa is the same as Saudi oil. Okay? Because they are going to take something that is, their cost of producing that would be very low, and they would make a lot of money, so they're willing to do this, right? And so and the ore is sitting on land owned by the government. It's government land. But there are farmers who have been illegally farming on that land for a long time. So POSCO said, we'll compensate all those farmers. Pay for the land, even though the land is not theirs, we'll pay for the land. Then they said, every family, one person should work at the plant. They said, okay, we'll take one person from every family into the plant. They kept asking for more and more things. POSCO kept saying, okay. And there was a lot of agitation against POSCO coming in. A lot of environmental, different things. People will keep bringing up different things. 3 of POSCO's Korean employees were killed. There was a lot of agitation. They were killed. POSCO still continued to try to want to do this. After 15 years of trying to do this, POSCO left India. They said, this will not happen. We can't make this happen. They left. And Emperor Mohnish would have approved this in 5 minutes. Okay, let's go. That's because it's a win-win for everyone. 80,000 crores coming into a place like Odisha is huge. And you get economic development in a place which doesn't have it. So there are a lot of things. So I'm just giving you very, very minor examples of things that are screwed up in India, but they should not be, right? And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples like this across our economy. And as we take out those shackles, we will get wealthier. But I don't think anyone's taking out the sugarcane shackle. I don't think anyone's taking out so minimum support price, MSP, needs to be wiped out across the board on every single crop, because it creates inefficiencies and artificial production which shouldn't be happening. The government will set up MSPs, then they'll have warehouses full of crops rotting, no place to put them. So you have to let the free market do that. But anyway, I can go on for a long time on this, but I wanted to give you a general sense of the fact that India does not need to be a poor country. We are a poor country by choice. Next question.
Good morning, sir. I am Anand from JNV, Madhya Pradesh. So my question is, sir, how can a person from a middle class family dream to start a multinational company, and how should he produce a product that would help to achieve this? So from where and how should he start?
Okay. Sounds good. Have a seat. What would you like to study? Are you planning to go to IIT? And what are you planning to study?
Automobiles industry.
Automobile? Okay. All right, good. Have a seat. So basically what will happen is that I'll give you my own story, which will maybe give you a perspective on how to do this. So in a week, there are 168 hours. When you take a job, you're required to work 40 hours. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? And even if you live close to work, maybe you will spend another maybe 5 hours in commuting. 1 hour a day, so you have 45 hours. And when you take out time for eating or sleeping or other activities, you will find that there's at least some 40 to 60 hours available to you for other things. Okay? I mean, one simple thing is that you're not working on Saturday and Sunday, and from 7 a.m. to midnight on a Saturday is what? It's 12 plus 17 hours. So you get almost 34 hours just on the weekend, right? And so this is not my story, but this is the story of many, many entrepreneurs. So what I did is when I was working, I was a computer engineer. And when I first started working in 1986, I think just a few months after I started working, me and two friends formed a company called Perry Technologies. It was a software tools company. We were still working at our jobs. And the three of us would meet and discuss the product plans and what we're going to make, who we're going to sell to and all that. And this went on for I think 3-4 months. We used to work on evenings and weekends. And then it fizzled out. The kind of people went in different ways. We didn't really get traction. And it kind of disappeared, didn't work, okay? The total amount all of us had spent on this would have been probably less than $1,000. Like maybe $300 each, very, very small amount, Compared to what we were even earning, it was very little. So this was in 1986. Then in 1990, I had another idea, which was called TransTech. And this time I was trying to do it myself. And same thing, while I was working, I was kind of figuring out all the different pieces that I need to do. And I used to work on this company about 2 hours before I'd go to work in the morning. Then I used to work in the evening. Then I used to work on the weekends. And it took about 10 months, and I got the first client. And then in about 12 months, I had 3 clients, and these clients were bringing me a lot of money, so it was good. And when I had 3 clients, there was enough profit where the profit was more than my salary. So when that happened, I went to my boss and his boss, and I resigned. And I told them that I started the company, blah blah, and I'm leaving. And so they told me, Mohnish, we noticed that for last 1 year, your performance dropped a lot. Like you were performing really well, but then for the last 12 months it went down, where you're just putting in bare minimum effort. So I told them, yeah, the reason is that all the effort was going here, and I wanted to just make sure. I said, my objective was not to get fired. Okay? So I said, I took my performance down to a level just above firing level. So they said, exactly, we used to have these discussions, कि मोनिश को क्या हो गया है? Fire कर दें क्या? नहीं, इतना नहीं है. But we need to make his performance better, but it's not so bad you need to fire him. So I said, that's exactly right. I wanted to just be above the level of firing, right? So when I was leaving in the US, you have to give 2 weeks notice. I gave them 2 weeks notice, and they said, look, I told them, look, if you want me to stay longer to transition the work, I'll stay longer. Whatever you need me to do. So they asked me to stay for 1 month. I said, no problem. I stayed for 1 month. And just as an FYI, 10 years after I left the company, both my boss and his boss became investors in my fund. So we don't burn bridges. We don't leave an employer and say, I'm never going to, work with them again. you need to keep all your relationships in good shapes. So anyway, basically in 1991, and another thing, when I was leaving, they told me, when your company goes bankrupt, the new company, not if your company goes bankrupt, when your company goes bankrupt, come back, we'll give you more money and higher position. So I said, ये तो बड़ी अच्छी बात है कि अगर if this does not work, I don't even need to look for a job. I'll just come back here and I'll get more money and everything will be fine. And of course, the good news was I never went back. Okay, so Transtrek actually became successful and it went from there. But I could have done this 10 times, right? So in my case, it worked on the second attempt. But with this part-time approach, you have the ability to do infinite attempts, right? Because there's no cost. And also now with technology, most of the things you'd work on tend to be apps or something related to software or tech or something where the cost is not much. So the cost of making or building something is not much. So this is how you get a company off the ground. Then when you get it off the ground, then first step is survival and getting all the basics done. And then after that, it's a question of, scaling it is a matter of, what kind of products and services and what kind of ethics and what type of competitive advantage, all these sorts of things come in. And then as you get more of that, you can do better. Next question.
So I am Vaishnavi Divedi. I am from JNV Kanpur Nagar, Uttar Pradesh. So Dakshina was your idea or Harina ma'am's idea? From where and when do you get the spark of helping Indian unprivileged kids? Is it your ancestral habit to helping others with selfless giving and infinite good?
Okay, good question. Please have a seat. Well, Dakshina was my idea, but I don't think it would have happened if Harina was not supportive. And so she's always been very supportive of everything that Dakshina has been doing. So that has worked out very well. And there is no ancestral family history I can point to about kind of where the drive from Dakshina came from. I mean, like I had an uncle, for example, who was a doctor, and he had put a board outside his house saying, "Free treatment for the poor." So if anyone was poor who came, he would help them out. So I was aware of those types of things some members of the family had done. But what I noticed a lot about when I looked at what a lot of people, especially in India, tended to do in terms of giving, charity or philanthropy and so on, what I notice is that it would be, I mean, I'm not criticizing it, but it would be very focused on things around them. So what I mean is, someone has a servant, for example, and they'll try to help the servant's children get good education, pay the fees and try to get them into good schools and so on, or help them with their marriages and that sort of thing. So, but that, one of the things I didn't like about that model is that if that person was not a servant, then that family would not get helped. It was getting helped because of X, right? So if you take the X away, it's not getting helped. So the second area where a lot of people get kind of, which has been happening for, I think, thousands of years, is huge parts of humanity gives to religious organizations. We have a lot of religious beliefs. And so, for example, the Catholic Church is the wealthiest organization on the planet, very wealthy. बिकॉज उन्होंने बोला कब से कि 2000 साल से कि 10% अपना इनकम दे दो. Now, most Catholics don't give 10%, but even if you're giving a small percentage, it adds up. So Catholic Church is very valuable. And that's fine. That's a decent way to give. I mean, I would say that something like the Golden Temple in Amritsar is probably drowning in cash. So much coming in versus what they need, and such. And so what I wanted to do. So just to give you take a step back. The reason Dakshina got started was not because I am a good person. The reason Dakshina got started was because I had no choice. Okay, so let me explain that. Dakshina got started for a selfish act. So let's say there's no Dakshina. Okay, and let's say Harina and I become quite wealthy. And we really cannot consume the wealth we have in our lifetime. This is a very common situation with many rich people. So what do rich people do then? Well, then they give it to their children, right? And then it might go to their children and so on and so forth. But the thing is that giving it to your children is actually doing them a disservice. It is not helpful to my kids to give them a huge amount of money at the beginning of their lives, because it will probably create distortions that are overall negative. Okay? So there was an American sprinter, Jesse Owens. Have you heard of Jesse Owens? Anyone heard of Jesse Owens? स्प्रिंटर्स का ज़्यादा आप ध्यान नहीं देते हो. एक और स्प्रिंटर है उसेन बोल्ट. कुछ दो चार लोगों ने उसेन बोल्ट का नाम सुना है. Who has heard of Usain Bolt? Raise your hand. Okay, that's good. Looks like he's quite popular in Hyderabad. I'll make sure I let him know that. Anyway, so Usain Bolt, क्या ज़बरदस्त भागते हैं. Now let's say Usain Bolt gets married, and Usain Bolt has a son. And Usain Bolt is teaching him to be a sprinter, okay, like himself. Is it fair that when the 100-meter dash is run, Usain Bolt's son starts at 30-meter mark? Everyone else starts at 0. He's Usain Bolt's front, so some benefit should come. So he starts at 30-meter mark, and then we say, go. Is that the way we should run our races? No. कुछ benefit नहीं देना चाहते Usain Bolt को. इतना करने के बाद, you don't want to help his kid out. How about 20-meter mark? Some advantage? No. 10-meter mark? 1-meter mark? उसको भी 0 पे शुरू करोगे? Will he win? No. Do you think he will win? Who thinks he will win? Raise your hand. Who thinks he will lose? A lot of people don't think at all. So, Gavaskar के सन को क्या हुआ? वेंगसारकर के सन को क्या हुआ? हमारे कोहली साहब के बेटों को क्या होगा? What is happening to the sons and daughters of our greats? What's the name of the badminton player? Sindhu? PV Sindhu? What about her daughter? Should we give some benefit, 5 points to start the game? No? ऐसी चीज़ें नहीं करनी चाहिए. तो फिर what about inheritance to next generation of kids of rich people? And inheritance to next generation of kids of next generation is The same as putting Bolt's son at 30-meter mark, right? The two are equivalent. You don't seem to have a problem with that. How come you're allowing that? How come India does not have 100% estate tax? Which means when you die, everything goes back to the government. Should that be a law? वो भी नहीं करना चाहिए. We should not have 100% tax of nothing going to the next generation. So Warren Buffett has a quote, and he was the wealthiest guy in the world. He said that I want to give my kids enough money for them to do anything they want, but not enough money for them to do nothing. Right? So he wanted to use the money to give his children opportunities, but not कि तुम घर में बैठे रहो और हर महीने चेक आ रहा है, कुछ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So there are many members of my extended family where multiple generations have not worked at all. Where what happened is some grandfather or great-grandfather happened to buy a property in Delhi that became worth more than 100, 150 crores. And then after that, I just have observed 2 or 3 generations after that, uncles, cousins, nephews of mine, completely wasted lives. So I took Buffett's words into heart and I said, it would not be a good idea to pass on all our wealth to both our daughters, because probably their life would be worse than if they didn't get anything, right? Because, like I said, if Usain Bolt's son is a gifted sprinter, you put him on the 30-meter mark, he will never become a great sprinter. He never has to compete. If all of you came from wealthy homes, you would not be here. And you would not work so hard. And you would not achieve your maximum potential. It is a blessing that you are poor. Are you happy that you are poor? Yes. Big blessing. So I enjoyed that journey, Transtech, and so I tell people the best thing that happened to me was that my father went bankrupt before I finished education. If my father was like what I've seen in my family, where there was a large factory and inheritance and different things, my life trajectory would have been different, probably worse. And that probably would not have worked. So the reason why there is a dakshina is, number one, I did not have a choice. So if I'm not going to give it to my kids, if Harina and I are not going to give it to our kids, then who are we going to give it to? My dad used to say, Nange aaye hain, nange jana hai. I cannot even take this pen with me. Can't take anything. I have to leave everything behind. So sad, okay? But the thing is that if I have to leave everything behind, there are only 2 choices. Either give it to the kids or give it to society. Giving it to the kids, I already told you, has problems. Now, Gavaskar, I don't know whether he has a son or not, I'm assuming he does. Why didn't he become a good batsman? He didn't have to go through the same journey his father did. Tendulkar, we'll see. Probably, I would guess that none of the great cricketers are going to produce great progeny who are great athletes. It's just not going to happen because it's so competitive. And so if I'm going to give money away, I don't want to just give it to, like the example I gave, the servants or the people around me. I wanted the giving to be what I would truly call selfless giving. which is Himanshu and I have no connection. कोई connection है हमारा? अभी थोड़ा हो गया है connection, लेकिन पहले तो नहीं था ना. So, but there is some help being provided to Himanshu on a very, I would say, systematic basis. You know, Himanshu's parents don't know my parents or any of that. There's no connection or anything that helped him on that front. He had to go through a process which got him here. And so when I'm going to give money, the idea is that we want, just like we want India to be a wealthy country, we want very high social ROI, social return on investment. And the reason we started Dakshina was to find a home for the wealth, but not just any home. We wanted to find a home where we get massive return for the money we put in. And if you think about what happens with each of you, is on each of you, Dakshina will end up spending somewhere between 1.5 to 2 lakhs over the 2 years. On the coaching, approximately, that's what it ends up being. Against the 1.5 to 2 lakhs that we spend, once you graduate from IIT or NIT and so on, you'll probably be making by then north of 10 lakhs. And in a few years, maybe north of 20 lakhs, and then keeps going from there. So 2 lakhs spent in 2019 gives an output of more than 5 times in 4 or 5 years. And it keeps going. So that happens because there are multiple engines at work. So there is the JNV system. There is the IIT system. And this JNV system is testing 25 lakh kids every year. You know the JNV ST in 5th standard that all of you took. So to test this 25 lakh kids all over India is a huge exercise. Okay, and then from here, we get 40,000 kids. And then here's Dakshina. So let's say maybe 500 to 600 kids a year are coming to Dakshina. And then from here to IIT. These 500 or 600 kids that we have here, if you remove the JNV system, so let's say the JNV system does not exist, okay? And Dakshina has to go and find these 500 kids out of 25 lakh kids, we would collapse. It's not possible for us to do that, actually. This engine, which tests 25 lakh kids, is a very robust engine. This year, Dakshina tested a bunch of kids. We tested 8,000 kids. So 8,000, 25 lakhs is a huge difference. And this engine, basically, there is some 4,000 crores a year that the government spends on the JNV system, approximately. On the 5 or 600 JNV, about 4,000 crores. This 4,000 crores is critical for us to get these 500, 600 kids. If this 4,000 crores is not spent, over here, we are spending on let's say, 6 to 15 crores, somewhere there. So the 4,000 crores makes our spending possible. And the IITs are spending maybe another 5,000 to 7,000 crores. So when we send a person to IIT, like you pay like 1 lakh a year or something, it costs the government close to 10 lakhs a year. There's a very heavy subsidy on the IITs as well. So the bottom line is that if I gave anyone, let's say I gave somebody 2 lakhs, and I said a family, there's a very poor family living on the street, take the 2 lakhs, and in 5 years, make their income 10 lakhs. I gave someone that proposition, right? You take the 2 lakhs, you make the, so some person is making 5,000 rupees a month, for example. I'll say change 5,000 to 1 lakh. And the answer is it cannot be done. You cannot go to a random group of people who are poor with that low an amount of spending and get that kind of outcome. Dakshina gets that outcome because we are sitting between two systems. We are sitting between a JNV system and an IIT system where collectively 10,000 crores is being spent, right? The 10,000 crores makes our 10 crores work. If you take the 10,000 crores out, our 10 crores doesn't work. So every crore I put in, the government puts in 1,000 crores. So the deal I have with the government of India, which I love the government of India, I put 1 rupee, they put 1,000 rupees. क्या ज़बरदस्त equal partnership है. So that's what makes it work. And so that's why we did Dakshina, and that's why we are doing all this. And it was, I think the influences were very heavily Warren Buffett. And I don't think a lot of my influence came from my family. I mean, I saw my parents' charitable endeavors used to be limited to the people who work for them or the religious places they went to, those types of things. And I definitely wanted to get away from that. So I did not want to go down that path. So actually what I did is with my parents, I unlearned what I saw happening. Next question.
Sir, I am Aditya from JNV Mirzapur, Uttar Pradesh. Sir, why does India team win very few gold medals in Olympics or Commonwealth Games despite having great potential? Does the same reason allow to all of us also?
Pardon?
Does the same reason relate to all of us also?
Sure. Have a seat. Now, I told you if you make me the emperor of India, I will change things. If you made me the head of sports in India, nothing will be the same. जितने गोल्ड मेडल चाहिए उतने मिल जाएंगे. फिर भी मेरे को कोई स्पोर्ट्स मिनिस्टर नहीं बनाता है. वो कहते हैं ना गालिब, ये ना थी हमारी किस्मत. So since you know Usain Bolt, there is a book called The Bolt Factory. So, what country is Usain Bolt from? And so, do you know where Jamaica is on the map? जमैका तो क्रिकेट भी खेलती है. बोल्ट क्रिकेटर भी बनने वाले थे. It is part of the West Indies. Where is the West Indies? Pardon? Raise your hand. Where's the West Indies? So the West Indies is a set of very small islands in the Caribbean, in the Atlantic Ocean, just in the just south of the US. And when we play cricket against the West Indies is not one country. There are about 8 or 9 countries that come together and they play as a single country. So one of the islands, one of the small islands in the West Indies is Jamaica. And Jamaica not only produced Usain Bolt, but what happens now every time at the Olympics, is the Jamaicans sweep all the sprinting golds. Men, women, 100, 200, 400. This is all going to the Jamaicans. So if you look at total number of medals handed out between gold, silver, and bronze in the Olympics, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters for men and women, including the relays, Jamaica dominates. Now, before Jamaica dominated, the United States dominated. Okay? Jamaica has, I don't know, less than 1 million people. The United States has 330 million people. Jamaica is a very poor place. The United States is a very rich place. Many US schools have world-class track facilities, and they pay big scholarships, and they try to bring in the best sprinters, and they run an intense program. With all of that happening, some stupid country like Jamaica is beating the US, right? Is it because the Jamaicans are genetically better sprinters? मतलब genetically नहीं है, उसेन बोल्ट को देख लो बॉस, क्या जबरदस्त लगते हैं. You don't think that the Jamaicans have a genetic advantage. So they used to think that because the Jamaicans came as slaves from West Africa, there was some advantage they had. But US has got a lot of slaves too. And in fact, most of the US sprinters are black, just like the Jamaican sprinters. So why does Jamaica dominate? And why does the US not dominate? Okay, so we have sprinting, and we have Jamaica. Okay, now if I go to another sport called baseball, baseball is like cricket, American version of cricket. So in the United States, there are a number of professional baseball teams, just like we have IPL here. We have a number of baseball teams. A large number of the players in those teams are from the Dominican Republic. They are not from the US. So in the US, almost every American who's born, as they start growing up, they start playing baseball. Just like everyone here is playing cricket. And they grow up playing baseball. And then all the US national teams, all the professional teams, Dominican Republic se aaye hain sab players. Just like sprinters are coming from Jamaica, baseball, they're coming from Dominican Republic. So why do the baseball players come from Dominican Republic when Americans themselves have been, and the Dominican Republic has very poor baseball facilities. Their baseball grounds are not so good. In the US, just in my small city where I live, we must have at least 100 professional grade baseball fields, which have lighting for day and night, everything perfectly done. The grass is cut twice a week. It is at least 100 grounds are there like that. So if my kids wanted to play baseball, for example, there's always parks and places available you can go and play. No problem. In Dominican Republic, that's not the case. Even then, the Dominican Republic produces a lot of baseball players. So the reason is, and this book talked about it, The Bold Factory, is sprinting in Jamaica is a very intense national sport. The Jamaicans are intensely passionate about sprinting, and Jamaica is a poor country. And what they have done is, from the age of, I think, 7 or 8, they very carefully are watching the kids in the different races, and very senior coaches watch them, and once the kids are about 10 or 11 years old, they start separating them out, where they put very senior coaches under them. Some of these coaches are former Olympians teaching an 11-year-old kid. And when they have sprinting meets in Jamaica, where 12-year-olds are running, 25,000 people have come to watch. Okay, so when 12-year-olds are running, the whole country is showing up to watch. And then by the time they're 14 or 15, I mean, the names of these kids who are doing so well, everybody knows their names in the country. And by the time they get to 17 or 18, then they're going on to the national teams, and then they're going on to the, the world championships and the Olympics, and they keep going from there. And actually now what has happened in the last few years, because Jamaica has started dominating so much, it's a snowball that's getting bigger because they see all of this on TV. And so the kids who are 6 years old or 7 years old, they think sprinting is the way to go. So even like Usain Bolt was very interested in cricket, and he wanted to become a cricketer. But what happened is that when he was running, his coaches and all that pushed him away from cricket towards sprinting. And he went through pretty intensive programs. So basically what ended up happening is that we as humans have many talents. It's a matter of passion kitna hai, right? How much intensity of passion is there in that pursuit? So in the country of Jamaica, they are going to discover anywhere in Jamaica, anyone who has any kind of talent for sprinting is going to get discovered, is going to be put under very top-notch coaches, and will be given everything possible. And he has role models. Humans are very driven by role models. And so they care about that. In Dominican Republic, the same thing. When they watch baseball on TV, when they're watching the Chicago Cubs or the New York Yankees or the Phillies or whatever else, they are seeing their own country people playing there. And Dominican Republic is a very poor country. What they know is, if my kid makes it in baseball and he gets selected by a US team, he's going to make millions of dollars every year. So these mothers, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they're very intensely focused on making them the very best baseball players they can. In the United States, the approach to baseball that I would take with my kids is, it's just an activity. Let the kids go, let them have fun, whatever. No. In Dominican Republic, it's intense. So the intensity of pursuit of baseball in Dominican Republic is like the intensity of pursuit of PCM with all of you. Right? हमने आपको बोला क्रिकेट खेलने को अभी? No. We have told you focus on PCM, right? And we need to do that focus to get that output. Now, if you were all in your own JNVs, you would not get the same output. And one of the things that happens when you come here is not that the teachers are teaching you. The teachers are teaching you. But what is happening is your peers are teaching you. Humans are very heavily influenced by peers, very heavily influenced by peers. So if you are in a group of people where everyone is going towards a certain goal, you will go through that goal as well. That's just the way we are. So how do we fix India in terms of getting a lot of medals? इसमें कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. All you have to do is you have to do Dakshina type things in different sports, right? So for example, if I were to pick up, let's say, a sport like sprinting, right? Let's say we take a sport like sprinting. Well, first is we would set up a world-class facility for sprinting. We'd bring in the coaches, and we'd set up kind of an approach where, like Jamaica, I would just go and copy what Jamaica did. At the 10-year-old level, we are figuring out who the good kids are, and we are starting to bring them in, and then keep on winnowing that talent. And ultimately, it may take 10 years or 15 years, we will be producing sprinters left, right, and center. What's the name of that girl who, Hema Das, right? My favorite. Hema Das, I think she trained inside of JNV, right? JNV Kachar, look at that. And running barefoot. And so the thing is, but in the case of Hema, I think raw talent, not that much coaching. And so what I'm saying is the Hemas of the world, if they are identified much earlier, brought into areas where all their peers are fellow sprinters, the coaches are former sprinters who have won silver and gold medals and all that, I would bring in the Jamaicans to coach them. So we set up our academy, we bring Usain Bolt to be their coach, right? And we change the whole thing. So you can change this in any field you want, and that's how you get there. Next question.
Morning, sir. Sir, I am Archana Jana from JNV Howrah, West Bengal. I want to know that how much I have to earn to establish and run an unique and innovative school for slum-dwelling kids in India, and what are the problems I'll face in this journey?
Okay, good question. Please have a seat. All you need is the idea and the passion. I don't think you need much in terms of money. So what you can do is you can start as small as one child, right? It's not a big deal. So once, let's say, you start working, etc., even during your breaks, your summer breaks, helping a small group of kids for a few weeks or a few months is almost zero cost. It costs nothing. It just needs your time, right? And as you see kind of what are the things that would benefit those kids and what are the things that would allow things to scale, then you can figure out kind of the pieces that you need to put in place. So, if you look at for example of a Mother Teresa, she was not a wealthy woman, right? But she helped a lot of people. And a lot of people came to help her to help a lot of people. So you do not need any money to get going. And I think if you're doing a good job, you will be surprised who wants to join you to help you. So the idea is that you need a spark, you need something to get going. And then after that, the universe will conspire to help you. So don't think I have to do something big. Think very small but effective. And small but effective, and then can it scale, and then you go from there. So that's what I would suggest. Next question.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I am Diksha Savita from JNV Kanpur Dehat, Uttar Pradesh. Sir, there are many foundations like this are only for sharp-minded students. They have to qualify exams. For example, in 5th standard, they have to qualify JNV entrance exam. And after that, in 10th class and 12th class, they have to qualify Dakshina exam. Sir, there are many kids who are not capable of qualifying such exams and having different kinds of talent, like in sports, arts, and music. Sir, I think they could do better if they will be provided support right from their primary level. So, sir, is there any idea or way to support those people who want to be excellent in their life but can't because they have to manage food for their family?
The needs are immense, and in fact, what Dakshina does is just a drop in the bucket. We don't touch large amounts of issues and problems that exist on a variety of fronts. And you may be familiar with Gandhiji's quote, be the change you wish to see. Have you heard that before? Who's heard that quote before? किसी ने सुना ही नहीं है. So Gandhi ji used to say, be the change you wish to see. Okay, so clearly many things bother you. So better than asking me, can Dakshina do X or do Dakshina do Y? Dakshina cannot do most of these things. You can do it. So when something bothers you, like you had mentioned about helping kids, you can pick any of those areas for any of those kids, focus in, and see what difference you can make. And then you can see who else can help you and how else you can scale it. The important thing is to be focused. This is one of the most important things. So, I think Dakshina has been around for about 12 years or so now. There are 1,000 things 1,000 people have told me that we should do. And 999 of those I ignored, right? Because we cannot do everything for everyone. If we try to do everything for everyone, we will do nothing for no one. Okay, so focus is very important. So you have to pick your battles. So you pointed out a number of issues. You could pick sports, you could pick arts, you could pick mathematics for kids who are 6 years old, whatever. But the narrower you go, the higher the odds of success. So if I ask Usain Bolt to be a badminton coach, he'll fail. He doesn't know anything about badminton. But if I ask him to be a sprinting coach, he might do really well. So you have to be focused. Next question.
I am Pragati Gupta from JNV Garwa, Jharkhand. Sir, it is my default or what, I don't know, but I want to overcome from this problem. Sir, I have never been able to do my best in what I want. For some days being inspired from teacher's lecture, I decide to do my best, but after few days, I lost my interest. I asked this problem from many people, but I'm not getting that. So this to myself.
Okay, so that's a great question. It probably comes more into play after you finish education. To some extent, it comes into play while you're studying. So when we are studying, like right now, in fact, when you're going through studying for the JEE and such, I remember there was a scholar we had, I think, right, one of the first batches, who wanted to become an architect. And he was very passionate about architecture. And the IITs had a architecture specialty. But to crack the JEE, you needed to do well in chemistry. And he hated chemistry. And he said, chemistry से architecture का क्या मतलब है? वो कहते हैं ना घालिब, कहाँ मैं खाने का दरवाज़ा और कहाँ वाइज. So he had a really hard time with the JEE Advanced, at that time IIT JEE, and in the end he could not clear it. Okay, but one of his teachers told him that the School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi, SPA, takes the AIEEE result. And then within that you can take that, and the chemistry is not relevant there. So he went down that path and ended up at SPA, which is a very good architectural school, and he found a way. So the thing is that one of the things that what we face, and probably a lot of you face, is that today you have to study many different things. You get excited, maybe passionate about some things, but then that kind of goes down, and then you have difficulty focusing. It's not an easy problem. I think you have to keep the goal of the JEE test in mind and do the best you can. in many ways, it's a game of planning, of clearly the subjects that you know well, you have to do very well in. The subjects that you don't like, etc., you have to try to make do the most that you can. But what really becomes relevant after you finish here and maybe even finish after the IITs is after that, you absolutely have to focus on doing things that you're passionate about. So once you finish your education and you start working somewhere and you find that you're not excited to get up from bed in the morning and go to work and stay there and all that, it means that you're in the wrong place. Okay, it means you have not found your passion. You need to be like Virat Kohli with cricket or like Usain Bolt with sprinting. You need to find something that really excites you. Okay, and if you are doing things that do not excite you, number one, you won't do them well. Number two, you will not be very successful at it. And number three, you'll get frustrated. So it's very important to focus. Like, so for example, today is a Sunday morning. There are 100 ways I can spend Sunday morning. I can't think of a better way to spend it than this, right? So I made that choice, right? And so we have to make the choices so that we end up doing things that we love doing. I'm visiting some company tomorrow on Monday. I don't want to do anything else. That is exactly what I want to do. Even if I'm not getting paid, that's what I want to do. So what we have to do is, I think when we are studying, we don't have these luxuries because we have to kind of get to the finish line. Another thing that you can try and do is your close friends can help you. So when you're feeling like I'm kind of losing it, your friends can maybe help with counseling or helping you get past what's bothering you. But it's very important that once you are past IITs, past NITs, past all of that, that you focus very heavily on your passions. You know, when I look back, I went through an engineering degree, and the class that had the most impact on me in the entire period that I did that degree was a class on public speaking. And this class on public speaking was not required. It was an elective. You could choose to do that. There was a choice. You could either take technical writing or public speaking. I took public speaking. And when I look back at all the different classes I took, most of them I don't even remember. I don't know what I learned, what happened. This particular class, I remember really well. And most of the things you learn in college will not apply with a great deal of relevance to what you do at work. So the most important thing is to be a learning machine and is to continue to learn. And if you continue to learn, I mean, like, you know, that Usain Bolt factory, it has no relevance to what I do, but I really enjoyed that book because it explained to me why the Jamaicans dominate, right? And so figuring out things in terms of how the world works is a really good thing to do. Next question.
Good morning, sir. I am Pragya Kiran from JNV, Nalanda, Bihar. Sir, you have been visiting many new and different places frequently. Sir, I want to know that how can we develop a prestigious personality in ourselves among many peoples in our society, in our community?
Okay. Good question. So I think that I don't think the objective should be to develop what you call a prestigious personality and so on. I think it is important to become a good public speaker. I think public speaking is a good thing. You may get a chance to do that in the IITs. Even if you do like theater or debate or public speaking, these things will help you. So I think, and if you cannot, then there are other organizations, like there's an organization called Toastmasters, which is a non-profit organization in many cities, which again helps you with public speaking. So it is a mistake to I think it's a mistake to start with the objective, for example, of I should be very famous. I don't think that is a good objective to start with. I think an objective of being the best at what you do and continue to improve how well you do that is a very good objective. So like, I would say, like the Gita says, we need to be karam yogis. We focus on the effort. We do not focus on the reward. And whether the reward comes or whether the reward doesn't come is irrelevant. What we want to make sure of is that when we look in the mirror, that we put in the maximum effort. And so the idea is that you want to develop the skills which will give you the odds of being successful, but not directly go and say, I want to be very famous, right? So even if you look at Dakshina, for example, at Dakshina, I have never had an objective, and I hope it never becomes an objective, that Dakshina should be known. That is not an objective. It is not an objective that I should be known. That's also not an objective. The objective is, are we doing the best job possible? And if anything like those other things happen, that's a side effect. So side effect is fine, we can deal with the side effect, but it is not the driver. When it becomes a driver, then we have actually lost our mission. We really cannot look at it that way. So that's what I would suggest. Next question.
Sir, I am Pratik Chaudhary from JNV Purulia, West Bengal. So my question is that, so there happen to be some brilliant students in every class. They become special figures of the class and get special treatment. But what about all those students who work wholeheartedly but doesn't get that much yield? Sir, it is true that hard work changes the destiny, but only he knows through which phase he is going. And sir, so what is it that can keep himself motivated and focused on their study in this phase situation?
Please have a seat. So clearly, for example, if we look at someone like Usain Bolt, he put in a lot of effort, but he's also got some God-given talents. It's a mix of effort and talent that makes him. If Usain Bolt is 4 feet tall, no matter how much effort he puts in, he doesn't become the fastest sprinter, right? So part of it is the inborn ability and part of it is the effort. So a very important thing to remember about humans is that we are always going to have people in every class who some are smarter than other people, some work harder than other people, some are smart but obnoxious, smart but very, chin up about it. So the important thing to do is we have to avoid envy. What's the meaning of envy? Yeah, so it's not exactly, but it's... So a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, in the situation all of you are in and the way you get compared, the person or people who get the best, highest scores tend to be looked up to. In your case, they're getting some special attention. But in life, they are unlikely to be the most successful. So they may be at the top of the world when they are 17 or 18. They are unlikely to be there at 28 or 38. Okay, so things change, right? And so, for example, there's a website that tracks all these kids who got JEE rank 1. So every year there is one person who gets JEE Advanced rank 1. And there's a website you can go to after you finish where it lists all of them, going back, I don't know, more than 30 years. And they have tracked those people's careers. कोई सत्या नडेला नहीं बना, कोई Bill Gates नहीं बना. None of those people you would have ever heard of. But they are JEE rank 1, right? Why didn't they make it? Why didn't they become the most successful in their fields? Because they have particular skills, which is fine, but you need many other skills and a combination of skills to have success in different areas. So they're all pretty successful. They have done PhDs, they become professors, they are professors at very good schools. So they've done well. But I couldn't find a single one of them who I would say, oh, this is like Dr. Kalam, or this is like Bill Gates. I couldn't find anything like that. Out of 30 year plus, a person who gets JEE rank 1, is he smart? जो JEE rank 1 आया है, Himanshu, are they smart? Maybe. अरे definitely तो बोल दो. It's hard to get, what do you think? Guy or girl getting JEE rank 1, are they smart? Yeah, they got horsepower. There's no question they have horsepower. I mean, to do that well on that tough an exam, but horsepower does not always translate into output. They have an engine which has got very high capability. Output from the engine needs more than just high-powered engine. Okay, so one of the things you have to do is that when ये जो हीरो है ना क्लास में आपके, जो हीरो हैं, कोई फिक्र मत करो, 10 साल में हीरो नहीं रहेंगे. So I'll give you an example, my own example. I used to go to a school in Delhi called the Air Force School, where there were a lot of kids from, the school was for Air Force officers. So they took 50% kids of Air Force officers and 50% civilians, what they called civilians. And I joined this school in 8th standard. And my father was a businessman, so I was a civilian. So when I first joined the school, these kids would come and ask me, oh, who are you? And then immediately next question, what does your father do? Okay, and when I told them what my father did, they would say, oh, you are a civilian. मतलब जैसे ब्राह्मण, क्षत्रिय, वैश्य, शूद्र, उससे below. Civilian. Below the untouchable is civilian. So the way they say, oh, you are a civilian. Okay, now what happened is, and actually it was the toughest school I went to because the kids were really smart. I mean, some of these kids, their parents were fighter pilots and all that, so very smart kids. And अभी 20-30 साल बाद सब मिल गए फेसबुक पे, सब बिछड़ गए थे, अभी सब आ गए हैं साथ में. And they can all see the civilian has left them behind, way behind. कुछ बोलने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, right? So we don't need to worry about where things are at a certain point in time. We just need to care about just putting one step in front of the other, become smarter every day, and things will work. No problem. Next question.
Sir, I am Rishabh Patidar from JNV Devas, Madhya Pradesh. Sir, here the school is wasting too much of our time. Sir, we are not able to manage our time properly for the preparation of IIT.
How is the school wasting your time? Give me some examples.
So like in assembly, sir, we have 15 to 20 minutes, but sir, some program is conducting, then we have to sit for 1 hour For sir, many others.
For the assembly.
Yes, sir.
Besides assembly, are there other places where time gets wasted? What about PT?
No, sir.
PT से exemption है?
No, sir.
You have to do PT?
Yes, sir.
How long is PT?
Sir, 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
And then what about, is there line at lunch?
That is too long, sir.
How long does that take?
Sir, approx 15 to 20 minutes in line only, sir.
3 times a day or more than 3 times?
3 times.
Okay, so have a seat. इसी स्कूल में there was a guy who used to go to this school called Ashok Kumar. People don't know me, they know Ashok Kumar. Do you know Ashok Kumar? Yes, sir. What is his JE rank? What is my JE rank? Nobody knows my rank, they know his rank. My rank is not there because qualify नहीं हो पाए. ऐसी गई गुजरी situation है. Anyway, so when Ashok went through his coaching at JNV Bangalore at that time, and he faced the same issue. PT करनी है, क्या क्या करना है. So what he said is that whenever he was going to do PT or going to assembly or whatever else or going to be in line, he had planned in advance to think about a question for which he didn't know the answer. And mentally he spent the entire time thinking about that answer. Okay? And so Ashok's perspective was, I only need to be there physically. I don't need to be there mentally. Mentally I can be wherever I want, right? And the other thing he did was, we give you those books which are, 32 years of JE papers. How many years is that now? 32. So what happened at his time was that he had to come back to Hyderabad a month before, and then the coaching ended, and then he had to take the test from here. So he was very concerned that he would forget everything. Because unlike you, he didn't have the coaching going on right till the end. So what he did is in the last 30 days, he took every single year the JE paper, just sat down for the 6 hours and took like 1980 ka test, 81 ka test. He went through each test and he took the whole paper and then he studied what he couldn't solve. Next day again. So he did this twice, all the papers twice. And then he went and took the test, and every time I meet Ashok, and I meet him I think a couple of times a year, he asked me this question: Sir, when are they going to beat my rank 63? So I tell Ashok सब नालायक हैं, कुछ काम वाम नहीं करते हैं, असेंबली में बस बैठे रहते हैं, mentally process नहीं कर रहे हैं. तो every year I come and talk to the batches and then I ask them, are you going to beat rank 63? So I'm going to ask you, are you going to beat rank 63? Say yes, please. Now I'll have to tell Ashok, 100 plus people, not even one said yes. So sad. How come you can't beat him? You can beat him. Are you going to beat him? क्या rank आने वाला है? What do you think your rank will be? Pardon? 100 पे थोड़ी beat होएगा. 63. 50. What are you going to do in the assembly? What will you do during the assembly? Mental processing of problems you can't solve. So it's hard, I know it's hard. Your question about the school wasting time, here's the situation. I have no power on the school. I'm the wrong person to talk to. You need to, maybe what you can do is write a letter as a class to the principal and explain your issue. But I think what is a better thing than that to do is आप mentally 3 problem मन में रख लो and think about those problems and think about different ways you can solve them, and think about things that you aren't able to understand. How are you going to plan things? There are a lot of things you can do on that front. And that's how you got to go do it. Next question.
I am Satyarth Srivastava from JNV Sultanpur, Uttar Pradesh. Sir, my question is how a student who is average in studies can do well and be one of the best student who has got selection in Dakshina?
So, अभी हम अशोक की बात कर रहे थे, जिनका 63 रैंक आया था. So, he went to IIT Bombay Computer Science. The IIT Bombay Computer Science class, everyone is below 100 rank. Okay? So, Ashok 63 is just an ordinary person in that class. So, he was taking his first computer science class, and they were going to have the first test. And he worked really hard for the test. And he saw that he got really bad marks, like 40% or something, on that test, after working very hard. And he saw that there were other people who were just playing in the hostel the night before, and they got more than 90%. So Ashok, first time ever in his life, he's in a situation where he's not at the top of his class. And so he thought to himself, जो भी effort डाल रहे हैं, find another gear. We have to do even more, because this is a different ball game. And so when the next test was coming, he worked even harder. And he got a better score, and he continued to put very intense efforts. And by the time he finished at IIT Bombay, he finished with a very high grade point average. No problem. So I think the thing is that a lot of things can be taken care of with intensity of effort. So, I mean, clearly some people have higher IQs, some people have lower IQs. But I already told you, the people with the highest IQs did not achieve that much, right? So it is a mix of your abilities and your effort. So you can make up a lot for your abilities with your effort. And so you have to be willing to put in the effort to get there. Next question.
Sir, I am Akhil of JNV Krishna, Andhra Pradesh. Sir, I want to become a good programmer by studying computer science in an IIT. But is it necessary to study chemical reactions and its applications and string waves, etc. so deeply? And is it not a waste of my time to study that instead of programming, because I want to become a good programmer?
Right, have a seat. So we talked about our architect friend. And so, as you know, I am not the emperor of India. And as you know, I have no ability to make any of these changes. So first of all, you're asking the wrong person. But the second thing I would say is that one of the things to keep in mind is that it is very important to have a decent understanding of many different disciplines, even if you're not going to go into those disciplines. So for example, I have an understanding of why Jamaican sprinters dominate. It was probably not going to make me any more money or any of that, but it definitely helps me understand how the world works. So I would say that you have no choice. It's part of the curriculum. And I would say that it's probably in the long run going to make you somewhat better if you have a decent understanding of chemistry. Things can come in a way that will surprise you. So I would say that approach it with a positive frame of mind. You know what you want to do. You know that your time, you're going to take the JEE in 2020. So, you know, you have a year and a half of chemistry to deal with. Deal with it. One day it will end. And in the meantime, chemistry mein to score karna hai. Right? So make sure you score well. And it is very good to have a perspective in life where what my hero Charlie Munger would say is that to understand many different disciplines, so you can build what he called the lattice work of mental model. So it is a benefit to understand why planes fly, or how planes fly, or why a very heavy object, or heavier than air, can get off the ground. It may have no relevance to your making money, but it's a good idea to understand that. And it's a very good idea to understand the basics of chemistry. I think that just is, it's helpful long term to understand the way the world works. So I would say that dig in with a positive attitude, learn it all, and who knows, there might be some intersection of chemistry and computer science that you could get involved with. So, next question.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I'm Shweta from JNV Berkshire. Sir, I want to know your personal relationship with your daughters.
Oh, personal relationship with my daughters, yeah. Yeah, I wish one of them had come with me. Then you could have asked them directly. You know, I think the personal relationship with my daughters is excellent. I don't think it could be better than it could be. And sometimes my wife and I will have an argument, you know, and the daughters always take my side. And it upsets my wife. So I tell her, they are not taking any side, they're just looking at what is right, you know, which upsets her even more, you know. And but no, I think I have a very good relationship with my daughters. I think so some of the things that lead to that relationship being good is, one is, I don't try to tell them the way they should live their lives. I've never told my daughters what they, for example, should pick as a field of study. Or I have given them, I mean, sometimes when I see behavior that I don't like or I would like to see changes in, I do tell them that. But I tell them it's more from their own perspective that it'll help them go further in life. But I'm not going to be, you know, telling them things like who they should marry or what field they should go into or many other choices that they would make. I think my wife and I had a chance when they were very young till the time they got to maybe their teenage years to set their values. And so we've hopefully done a decent job there. But beyond that, I don't think we've had much beyond that. So I would say that when I look at the relationship of many of my friends with their daughters, I would say my relationship with my daughters would probably be in the top 5% of that. So far, there are no issues. But maybe you can ask me after 5 or 10 years. I'll give you an update. Next question.
Good morning. I am Teja from JNV Karimnagar. And my question is, should we care others' feelings or not? By sacrificing our own feelings, especially with the person that we are not so close. And how can I stop a person from making a comment on me and making fun of me?
वो गाना है ना, कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना, छोड़ो बेकार की बातें, कहीं बीत न जाए रहना. So, just like the people who told me, oh, you are a civilian. Now, we have control as humans on what we let penetrate into our heads. Okay? So you will constantly hear negative things. Okay? Let's take the example of our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. Does he ever hear negative things said about himself? All the time, right? Every 5 minutes. Is that going to stop? Is he an accomplished person? Well, whether you agree, I don't know whether you're BJP or not, but I'm just saying that person who rises to be a prime minister, generally speaking, has accomplished a few things. You know, they're not going to be total idiots. So what I'm saying is that we should not be basing what we think about ourselves based on what other people are saying. And it's a very, very important thing to keep in mind. So Warren Buffett talks about this concept of an inner scorecard. And then there is also outer scorecard. So inner scorecard is how we rate ourselves, who we think we are. Outer scorecard is how the world thinks of us. This is completely irrelevant. This is very relevant. So anytime someone says something negative about you, if you think you can learn from it and become better, you can take that advice and try to improve. If you think the person is being unjust or mean or not being fair, you ignore that person. The world is filled with people who want to pull you down constantly. They're constantly trying to pull different people down. And in fact, the more publicly well-known you get, the more you will notice people trying to pull you down. People get jealous, they get envious, they have a lot of things they like or don't like. Our job is to kind of have like a bulletproof vest where it just bounces off. You know, someone says something negative, it just bounces off. But if someone says something which can help me become better, then I need to let them in and think about it. So a little bit of a tangent to this is that, let's say someone says something nasty or mean. Do you want to give an example of something someone has said to you? Do you have a mic? Just some example of what someone said to you. You don't need to tell us who it is, that affected you negatively. No, mic closer. So someone said you don't study much or study well. Okay, someone said you're not intelligent, right? How did that affect you? Right, please have a seat. Let's say someone says to me, Mohnish, you are stupid, for example. It's just going to bounce off. No impact. Mohnish, you are doing foolish things. I'll try to listen to what the person is saying is foolish. If I think I can learn from it, then I might change, but otherwise it's just going to bounce off. So another important thing is that Buddha said that there is no suffering in this world. So let's say you are just walking, feeling normal. Some person comes next to you and says, hey, you know, you are really stupid and you waste a lot of your time. you don't study very well, and he goes away. And you start thinking about it, and it makes you feel bad. Well, it's a reaction to an event that is causing that perspective. So we as humans have control over the reaction. What I do in a circumstance like that is, if something like this comes up, I make sure that person is completely excluded from my life pretty much forever. Okay? Now in your case, you're in an environment where you might see that person, but mentally you've decided this person is out. And definitely once you finish, you'll never be in touch with that person. So actually it's a very good thing that these things happen to you, because it helps you narrow down who are the people you want to have great relationships with long term. So it makes it easy to say, okay, Mr. X is out. And when Mr. X comes and talks to you, so one of the things that Buddha said is, how do you ignore suffering? How do you ignore suffering? And I think this is probably one of the most important things I learned last year. I didn't know this before that. I learned this at the age of 54. The most important way to avoid suffering is to become an observer of the suffering. So for example, think of yourself sitting up somewhere, watching the conversation between you and this person telling you you are useless, you're this, you're that. You are just a person watching the drama, right? And when you watch the drama, you say, oh, it's easy, ignore the person, move on. So when you move yourself from being the person to the observer, it makes it easy to push that out. And I think that's a very powerful mental model to avoid a lot of suffering, is move from being the participant to being an observer. And then, so if the person gets to you, that is your fault. You have control whether they get to you or not. If they bounce off, then you have done it correctly. So, in fact, I would even be blunt with a person, just say, dear Ram, thank you so much for your input. I have received your input. I really don't want any more of it. So we don't need to talk anymore. Okay? If Ram persists in talking to you, you have to use that as an opportunity to make the person bounce off. Right? And the better you get at that, the better you will get at life. Because for your whole life, there will be the Rams of the world coming at you. That's not going to stop. They come at me too, every day. No problem. Bounce off. And it's okay. Be an observer. So I think with that, I think that's all the time we have today. Thank you for taking time on a Sunday. And make sure you work hard. And wish you all the best. Thank you.